Hello, my name is Shannon Kale, and this is my case study 3 for SPCE 638 at Ball State University. So my client description for this case study was a 5-year-old male. He was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, and he had a vocal repertoire of one word, maybe 2 words sometimes, but we were working on that. And he did not have an AAC device. He pretty much used his words to communicate. And we were focusing on increasing his VPMTS, listener responding, and tacting skills. So the focus of this case study is on the verbal operant of tacting, and tacting is simply just labeling. That could be labeling an object, labeling an emotion, labeling an activity. It's basically just labeling items or things in the environment. And the stimulus class of focus for this client was dogs. A stimulus class is basically items that share common dimensions. So, for example, there are multiple types of dogs. They vary in color, in size, type of fur, etc. However, they're all categorized in the same stimulus class of dogs. They all have a tail. They all have some kind of fur. They all have ears. They all say woof. So they're similar in those dimensions. So the intervention for this tacting case study used discrete trial teaching, DTT. So this is where the therapist and the child would sit at a desk at the clinic, and they would run multiple trials in one session. And typically the client was seated at their table. Also, naturalistic teaching was used, and this was used in order to get that derived stimulus relation in the natural environment. So we were playing outside, or maybe we're in the gym, we're walking in the hallway, we're doing teaching there. That would be the naturalistic teaching. So reflexivity is that A equals A. So in the beginning, the client was taught to match identical pictures of dogs. So in the image to the right, you'll see 2 identical pictures of a Dalmatian. The therapist would give the SD or the instruction, match dog, and the child would learn through prompting to match the identical pictures of the dog. Once that child engaged in the correct response, those correct responses were reinforced. The incorrect responses were not reinforced. So eventually, the child was able to hear the SD match dog, and they were able to match the identical pictures. This shows that reflexivity. Next, we taught symmetry. So we then taught the child to find a different picture of a dog from an array of 3. So instead of using the Dalmatian pictures for matching, now we used a different picture, still in the same stimulus class of dogs, but instead we used a picture of a golden retriever. And in this instance, the therapist at the table using DTT would say, find dog. And the client would hear that, and then through prompting and shaping, we then reinforce them correctly identifying to find dog. This shows symmetry. Find dog, they selected dog. And lastly, we get to our transitivity. So one day we were out in the natural environment in NET, playing outside at the playground at our clinic. It's a fenced-in playground, and there's a walking path that sometimes people in town will walk on. And the child saw someone walking a bulldog across, and the therapist asked the child, "Hey, what is that?" And the child independently tacted, "It's a dog." This shows transitivity. So in the end, we did have a derived stimulus relation of when he saw the bulldog walking and was asked, what is that? He correctly said, that's a bulldog. This would be a derived stimulus relation because, first of all, that dog was never taught as dog, and the skill of tacting was never trained. So to go back up, we first started with A equals B. So he was shown a picture of a Dalmatian dog in that array of 3, and he heard the SD match dog. He was taught, when I hear match dog, I'm matching this picture of a dog. And then after he met mastery criteria and was fluent in that skill, we then taught B equals C. So this was, he was then taught with a different dog and a different SD to find the dog. So in that field of 3, the therapist would put out the golden retriever along with 2 other cards, which varied. Sometimes there were other animals, sometimes there were different objects. Um, and then he was able to learn that when I hear find dog, I'm going to then find the dog. So both of them, he's learning that these are both dogs, but he's not learning the tacting portion of it. That is when we get to the A equals C. So he sees a dog, he's learned to match a dog, he's learned to find a dog, but he was never taught to tact a dog. So that would be a true derived stimulus relation with the stimulus class of dogs.